All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals, and everybody else out there lurking in the darkness. This is a very epic episode of How'd We Get Here. Tonight we are talking to kind of a godfather of modern comics, in my opinion. Like he was a formidable character in the outlaw comic scene, which back in the day it was the new wave black and white scene, right? It's only
Oh yeah.
recently been called outlaw, but yeah, we have Mr. Phillip Hester here with us tonight. And how are you doing tonight, sir?
Great. How about you guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. Beginning of the week, so it's always a little bit of a slog in the early going of the week. But
I should buy that video package from you and use it for PR purposes. That's pretty neat.
If you want, we can send it to you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could take out our if you want, I could just splice it and just put the, take out our podcast thing and just put your name or
just put one loving shot of lingering shot of my face.
Yeah. All right.
So man, honestly, back in the 90s, man, the Caliber scene, what was that like, dude? Honestly, with the barbed wire Halo crew and all that,
it was very exciting. The whole black and white explosion, that the turtle set off was just, it felt like there was just unlimited possibility, because I don't know how much you guys know about sales at that time. They weren't image sales yet, but you could put out any book and make money. Mm-hmm. A little bit of money. So we did a book at Caliber called Fringe.
Yes, you and Paul Tobin. Yeah.
And the first issue sold 15,000 copies, which seemed incredible to us. We made money. We paid each other. We got paid for that book like a living wage, and that landscape's changed, of course. Yeah. Comics has sort of bifurcated infinitely into sort of all these little narrow casting channels. But at that time, the indie scene was such that every new thing that came down kind of got a little bit of attention. And so every little book had a spotlight on it for a time, and it could find an audience. And I think that's largely down to the fact that capital city distribution existed then. And so we had the two major distributors were Diamond and Cap City, and they would both spotlight different product. And so retailers would get basically double the, you'd get double the eyes on your book that you would if you just went with Diamond. So I remember the day Cap City went under, independent comics basically got cut in half. And but at that time that we were at Caliber, and also the other little tiny indies that I worked at before that, it seemed like we were working at the coolest record label. It's like we were at Sub Pop or whatever, and we were making all these DIY books, but they were finding their audience. And it felt like there was just unlimited potential ahead of us. And there was very little between your idea and getting a book out there. Even when there probably should have been, there wasn't. So you could get anything out. And it was very, very exciting and freeing time. Plus we were all when I think back of the people working then especially at Caliber, Minslaw, Guy Davis, Bendis, Jim Abar, we were all 22. So
you were little punks. Yeah. You were guys.
We didn't care. We didn't have to feed families. We could take chances, and it was a very exciting time. We didn't know it then. We just thought that's the way things were. But yeah, it was super exhilarating.
So are you happy to know that scene is kind of mythologized now and kind of look back lovingly? It's finally found its time in the sunshine.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, at the time we thought we were doing the right thing. I think we were making vital books, even if they had rough edges to them. We were making the exuberance was clear in all those books. And I always tell you, young creators, the number one thing I tell them is if you want to be a cartoonist, be a cartoonist. Like, just do it. Like, the only way to really learn this gig is to do it. And those little companies, for all their flaws, provided creators at that time the chance to do that. We got to work right away. Like, I was working in college, and like between like the summer between my junior and senior year in college, I was a working professional. And of course I had to have a day jobs here and there, but I was getting paid to make comics. And to me, that was number one. I had really exciting because I have a very romanticized view of what being a cartoonist was like. And I was living that dream. But also I was getting really valuable experience under my belt, which I should have been paying them for, but I was getting paid for, which was cool.
Yeah, your really early work, at least the stuff that I've been exposed to, is so great. Like, I have a couple issues of Fringe. I was really excited. There was a campaign to like have a hardcover that released on Kickstarter that didn't fund. I was so broken when that happened. I would
got
love
some. They're soft covers, but they did a few test printings, so I've got a few.
Oh man, yeah, I would love to get a hold of one of those, man. It's a great book, and I kind of wish more people had a hold of it, as well as The Wretch. I kind of always mythologized that book until Joey was able to get a hold of it. Never really told him what it was about or how it went.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And when he got a hold of it, like, you were pretty blown away, weren't you, Joe? What'd you think about Rain Babies, man? Isn't that one of the most beautiful stories you've ever read?
Just the whole thing, it totally took me by surprise, because I thought it was going to be like this gritty, like cracking skulls, but it's actually quite wholesome. The stories in it, and The Wretch is more, he's because you tell the story, the moral of the story, and he comes in at the end and kind of last minute saves the day, but you have the whole story build up to like the moral of the story and everything. Then The Wretch shows up and kind of is the end resolution comes from him, but there's a lesson learned there before you get to that point, right? So it's definitely a really interesting, almost like each story is standalone. So you could pick this book up, open it anywhere, pick any of the stories, and read any of them, and you won't be lost. Or
you'll be lost from the jump.
But it's because there's such an evolution in it too, from like the way you designed him in the beginning to after. And I love the little footnotes you put everywhere for each story. You had like a little mini footnote for each story in the beginning, and I really love that, because I didn't realize that this came out originally on Caliber when you first started it. And then I was like, okay, and
it started at Caliber, and it was like, for me, it was I got into comics because to tell stories, and storytelling is like my bread and butter, because like my drawing itself is nothing special, but like what I choose to do with the drawing, I think is someplace where I can stake out new territory from other artists. So I created The Wretches almost as a storytelling experiment, so I could push storytelling stuff. And along the way, the stories got a hold of me, and the stories really developed and became close to my heart. So it started out as a technical exercise, but really became sort of like the truest thing I ever did. That showed like my actual character, which is, essentially wholesome, kind of weird. But presented in an engaging way. So I have to say that experiment was successful, at least on some level, because it did get nominated for an Eisner. And
for best new series, I believe, right?
Yeah, for best new series. We lost to Leave to Chance, which who can complain about that? But but it also got me work in animation without having to do storyboards. I just when the Batman show was hiring storyboarders, I just sent in a couple issues of The Wretch. I didn't send any storyboards in, and they hired me. Because of the storytelling that was evident in that book. So it was successful. And, the funny thing about it getting an Eisner is that we got the Eisner the day we were canceled. The day Caliber canceled us is the day we learned about the Eisner nomination. And then Slave Labor swooped in and picked us up again. So we got to do another 6.
And I have a love for black and white comics. So when I saw
too.
when I saw the Wretch was black and white, I was like, oh yeah, giddy up.
I wish retailers had loved black and white comics.
Yeah, exactly. Johnny and I we say it all the time. I wish there was like more love for black and white, and it would make a comeback, because man, you see
it's what indie comics looked like, man. Like when I was a kid, like every now and then you were lucky if like Dark Horse had a colored issue of Terminator, but like everything that wasn't Marvel and DC was black and white, and it was all gorgeous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it impacted the aesthetic of people that came up during that time. Like if you knew that your work was going to be like on really crappy paper and like probably second tier or third tier printer and had no color to like bail you out, like your work had to be solid in black and white. Yeah. So it's why people like me went bold, or like people like me or Dean Haspiel or Mike Oming, we all went like really high contrast, really bold. And then guys like Guy Davis like really leaned into like those screen tones and textures. Vince Locke did the same thing, because we knew color wasn't going to bail us out. The things had to be solid when they left our table.
And you have to have, like you say, a really good foundation of just basics like positive, negative space, how you can play off one another.
Especially with the Wretch, because he's just a dark black, character.
Yeah, he's a silhouette.
He's a silhouetted character. Yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to I can't remember if it was Eisner who said it, or maybe it was Toth who said that like your character should read in silhouette. Like if your character doesn't read in silhouette, it's not a great character design. And if you look at all the really like long-lived characters that are in comics, you can tell who they are from their silhouette.
Yeah.
I really wanted the Wretch to be a character that could communicate just through body language. And so we like somehow, like at the very beginning, I just decided that character would never speak. And that forced me to like do everything with body language and everything with timing and editing. And it really helped me grow as a creator.
And around when did you kind of hook up with Jim Kruger and do Foot Soldiers? That was kind of just a bit after the Wretch, right?
Yeah, around that same time. Jim was like working at Marvel, but not in the creative side. He was working like in I think in the PR department at Marvel. So he tossed me these little gigs here and there, like designing characters for personal appearances, because Marvel at that time, I think you've all probably seen those like really terrible photographs of like their Hulk guy that went out in costume, their Hulk mascot, and Jim was like, we really need to update this. So it was I would do gigs like that for him, but at heart, Jim's a creator too. And Jim wanted his books out. So if you look at those early Foot Soldiers issues, they're like a preview of like people that are going to become all-stars.
Pretty much everybody that worked on it.
It's really incredible. And like Jim's a really great talent scout, and I feel lucky to be included in that series. And it was a lot of fun. And I got to be inked by Bill Sienkiewicz, which I can't complain about.
Yeah. The first time I got exposed to your work, I was really young. Was when I didn't even realize it till later, because when I was a kid, I didn't know credits as much, and it didn't hit me till later. I was like, oh, it was the Submariner annual you did, or
that's like
I saw
first...
that. Yeah, I saw that as a kid, and that just your style. I was like, it stood out to me. Like
because it's terrible.
Oh man, no, I loved it. I was like, this is different. Like, you stood out from the pack. Like you may not. I think it's just because you're so used to seeing your own work, that you get like blindness to it. But
sure,
you have a style, right, that is unique to you. It's like your fingerprint, right? And I love it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it stands out. And I love seeing that you're getting more and more work now. Like I just finished up that Gotham City Year 1 last week, and wow, Great
Yeah, that's
stuff. Jordi
that's a,
Belair did a
she's the best.
fantastic job coloring your work. Like it was almost a perfect book. Like, I mean,
Yeah, we worked together like we what yours like the stuff Jordy wanted to do, he's even more far out. Like I was like, don't hold back. Just like any experimental thing you want to do, let's just do it. I'm like, we have pages that are essentially black and white in that book, you
Yeah,
know,
pretty much.
or monochrome or whatever. And that's even Jordy pulled back a little bit. Like editorial was like, well, that might be too crazy. You know, let's pull it back a little bit. But I think it's like it's pure. Yeah. See,
kind of
there's
like that page
black
right
and white
there.
pages. Yeah. But like she went all out, and like I'll tell you something. When I'm asked to proof my own work, it's very difficult for me because I don't like to. All I see are the mistakes. But when I was proofing it this time, Jordy's colors like kind of just pulled me in, and I had no problem proofing my. Like I was a joy to look at it, you know.
Yeah.
Here we're just black and white with just a little punch of color. Like not even, I wouldn't even say a punch because it's a very muted color, right? So
yeah, that's my favorite page in the book.
Yeah. And I love and there's a lot of process stuff in the back too. Yeah. So I love your concepts for each cover, like the way you work through it, kind of seeing like your initial cover with the logo and everything. Like I love that stuff, you know. Like
yeah, it was a blast to work on.
Yeah. And I love the little at the end the street names and stuff like Grant and
that's pure Tom. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to work with Tom, and I learned a ton as a writer just from working with Tom and the kind of like incredible discipline he brings to a plot. Like a lot of comic book writers are a little bit impatient about showing you their goods. I don't know a better way to say this.
Yeah.
They have a big idea, and it's usually a vital and exciting idea, but they don't have a lot of them anyway, don't have the discipline to set it up and deliver it in a way that is like really gratifying to a sophisticated reader.
Yeah.
Tom does.
Oh, like, yeah. It got me guessing like 3 or 4 times during the book. Like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You know,
he puts the knife right between your ribs, you know, and like most other even really good comic book writers will have the hero turn to the camera and say the theme of the book, you know. This is about family or whatever, you know, like it's a great high-minded idea, but like if you're really crafting your story well, that should come to people without it being, you know, like actually spoken to them. And that's what I think Tom is really great at.
Yeah, and like you said, he really stuck the landing on it. Do you know is it canon or is that an Elseworld?
It is. We were going to be Black Label, and then Tom was like, you know what, I want this to be canon, so it's
okay. Damn.
So the owl on the thing, is that like towards the Court of Owls?
Yeah, it's just a little. It's just a little nod to it. Yeah.
And at first I was like, man, Bruce Wayne isn't even a Wayne, maybe, because you know, they have that little night, and then
you can take the maybe out.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was like. Oh, they had that night, and then all of a sudden, when she's on the news, she's like 3 months pregnant. I was like, oh.
Well, if you read carefully and you go back to the beginning of the book, she mentions that she and her husband are sleep in separate bedrooms
And stuff. Yeah. Like it was very infrequent, and how, like. Anyway, like there's probably a bunch of other Waynes around based on the story, the way
really.
Richard runs around town, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's probably a lot of kids in line for that Wayne fortune.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't read it, but yeah, that's to me the real super gut punch of the whole thing is at the very end when Constance comes in and asks Slam to like show her kid the ropes, you know, like show Thomas what it's like to be in this city. Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm not. I don't want anything more to do with you people. Yeah. And that's the minute Batman is born. Yeah. Because if Thomas was a little more streetwise, he doesn't go down crime alley.
Yeah.
after the movie, and Batman's never born. And it's just that was magic to me.
It was fun. It was a good one.
Well, the birth of Crime Alley was a really neat experience too, and
Yeah.
I thought it was very well handled in the book. Like, damn, like, yeah, Slam. Like, all of a sudden, like, he's going to be a pretty big part of Batman lore from now on, huh? Or
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, like,
yeah,
because usually there's a little remuneration for that at the end.
yeah, but it's a great book. Any fan of like the Batman mythos, this definitely adds a lot of lore to it. So it's definitely
and that art.
reading.
Throw it up again. Just open up a random page, man. It really does hit on that Eduardo Rizzo, like 100 bullets level of just masterful art, man.
But fair warning, Batman's on 2 pages.
Oh yeah,
FYI,
it's a Gotham story.
Yeah, dude, and that's why I think that this works, man. You guys didn't try to shoehorn him in. He was there, like, basically he's Fred Savage in The Princess Bride. He's getting told a story, and that's kind of all Batman gets in the book.
Yeah, I mean,
that's good.
I mean, this takes place long before Batman is even a thing, right? Even before Thomas is.
It's about Batman's grandparents.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and Slam Bradley.
And to tell you the truth, I think it goes harder than the Batman movie does, with like kind of making the Wayne family like really crooked, and kind of showing how Gotham was born. Because I liked at the beginning of this book, like the really kind of tyrannical police chief, our commissioner, kept everything tight. Gotham was actually a beautiful city before Slam does what Slam did. You know what I mean?
He does it. Slam does the right thing, but there's a huge price to pay for it, which is.
But I think if the story, it would have probably happened sooner or later.
Yeah.
Because, Richard wanted to go down into the projects there to build his chemical plant, the chemical processing plant and everything. And so I think it may have just sped things up ever so slightly, but I think it was probably.
But thematically in the story, it makes it clear that everything Batman does in the modern day is sort of a propitiation for what his like grandparents did, and the people before. I mean, it's really tough to be an ethical billionaire.
Yeah,
it's hard to thread that needle, no pun intended. And so you know that's bloody money that his empire is built on. So in a way, he's atoning for all that now as Batman.
As is a lot of wealthy people in North America, right? Yeah, it's not just in Gotham. Gotham's a reflection of the history of North American wealth.
True.
But like Phil said, Batman ain't really in this book, but what you will get is one hell of a true noir, like pretty much. Like
great stuff. And when it first came out, I heard nothing but great things the whole time this book was running. And when the collected edition came out, I was like, yes, jump on.
The hardcover too.
Yeah, the hardcover,
Yeah, it's something I'm still proud of, and I expect I'll probably be proud of like for the rest of my career, which is tough for me to say. But largely that was down to Tom and the editor, Ben Abernathy, just like really like letting me do what I wanted to do, letting Jordy do what she wanted to do. Eric Gapster, the anchor, being on the same page with me as far as like how to handle the high contrast imagery. I'm totally satisfied with the product.
But it's amazing. Like what you're nearing what? Have you worked 50 years in the comics industry?
No, I'm not that old yet.
Because you started what, in the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, mid to late 80s. So I'm coming up on 40.
40, yeah. So in 40 years, and you put this book out and it's still, you're still putting out great stuff. You're like, this is the best thing I've ever done. After like 40 years, you're still putting out work.
That's the key. Like never peak and you'll be okay. Like just stay steady. No, I feel like the next thing is always the best thing. And I'll let people judge that whether it is or not. And you can't control how readers feel about your work. I wrote a thing like 20 years ago called The Coffin, which I think like people that are fans of my writing thinks the best thing I've written. But if you ask Mike Huddleston and I, the book we did right after that, Deep Sleeper, is a superior book to The Coffin. But nobody else on earth feels that way. Everyone digs The Coffin, which is fine with me. We like that. But it's just that, like, once you put something out in the world, your ownership of it ends.
Yeah.
Like it belongs to the reader. So like the way they react to it's not under your control, and you have to, like, as a creator, one of the most important things you can learn is learning to accept and appreciate the way people feel about your work, no matter what you feel about it. And one of the toughest things for me in that regard was like how many people love my Swamp Thing run, because that was like, I was in like my mid-20s when I drew that, and I was like not ready for prime time. But I love that character and I love that book. And I'm so happy to hear, like, from so many people that really dug that book when it came out. And instead of being ashamed of it or whatever, or feeling like, oh, I can do so much better now, at some point you just have to make peace and accept like what people did like about it, and be grateful for it.
But I think it's just normal. As you work, you evolve.
Yeah.
You get better. It's just a normal process of growth in a person. Like whether
Sure.
it be professionally, personally. I mean, like, I am nowhere near the same person I was when I was 20. So it's only normal that yeah. So one thing Johnny and I noticed is often when you write, you don't draw your own books. You get the illustrator to come on, and we were just curious, kind of. If that's because it's just the process is quicker if you have someone drawing with you, or
there's a little bit of that involved, but also there's this idea to me that, like, at least I had in the past, I don't know if I still feel this way, but that drawing was my day job. Like, drawing comics was how I put food on the table.
Yeah.
And then I could take chances with writing. So like if something I wrote didn't make money, it wasn't a big deal to me. Like I've written a lot of books where I did not take a cut of what the book made, just because I wanted to get the book out there into the world. And that's because I could draw for a living. So, but also there's another aesthetic choice I'm making, which is I try to be very very honest about casting the books that I write, in terms of like, am I the right person to draw that book?
Yeah.
And like, I would say the majority of the time I am not. Like, I could not have drawn Firebreather the way Andy Kuhn did.
Yeah.
I definitely couldn't have drawn The Coffin or Deep Sleeper the way Mike Huddleston did. And I couldn't have drawn Mythic the way John did, John McCrae did.
Yeah.
So like, I look back on that and I'm like, yeah, there's a few books in my past that I probably could have drawn. Like, I probably could have drawn The Anchor, not as well as Brian Chirilla, but it's a book that I probably could have drawn. But there are books in my back pocket that I want to do both on.
Okay.
And, we may see those down the road. I hope we see at least one of them down the road soon. But yeah, I have a big board of like dozens and dozens of ideas. And right beside them, I have the artists that I think would be best to draw them. And I'm only on a few of those because, like I said, I try to be honest about my skill set.
And
go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, you have a wonderful list of collaborations, like with other creators. Like, I mean, that list is almost like you could call it almost an all-star list, right?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
People you've collaborated with, it's incredible. And not only that, it's been great collaborations that have produced some great works. So, man,
thank you.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, the adaptation of Firebreather, how did you end up feeling about that? I thought it actually came out as probably one of Image's best adaptations.
We were so thrilled about that happening. Like, we were, for one thing, both Andy and I are huge fans of Peter Chung from Aeon Flux and his other animated projects. So like, when we heard he was going to be the director, we were like so excited. And he definitely brought his vibe to it, and it became like a different animal from the book, which is okay with us because it doesn't obliterate the book. The book still, the book is still there, and you can still read it the way like we told it, but it was great to see it through the lens of like an auteur like Peter. And it was well received. It was it won the night on cable. Like, we beat the NBA. It's just that it was so expensive to make. It was like it was the most expensive thing Cartoon Network had ever made.
Yeah.
And I think an executive saw it and they were like, why are we spending so much money on something we don't own? These two hicks own it. You know, like, from now on, when we pour this much money into something, it should be like a corporate IP, you know? And so, like, I think that's why we didn't go to series. But it stands on its own. And now I'm hearing from people that were kids when they saw it, and they're all adults now. And it's really fun to hear from those people.
I was pretty grown when it came out, but I was a fan of yours, so I watched it when it aired, and I have the DVD.
Cool.
I love the movie. I like the comic a little better, but because I like the relationship between the mom and the dad, and they don't play it up as well as you guys did in the book.
Right. And then also the movie's got a soundtrack from Karen O, so you can't beat that.
Yeah. There is a book of yours that like lives rent free in my head, actually, that you worked on. You didn't write it, but the adaptation for Freaks and More. How did you get wrapped up into that? Like that thing like kicks my soul right in its ass, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's a great. Have you read the novel by Tom DeHaven? Yeah,
I got it after reading the adaptation, which the book is even more hardcore. Like,
the book is like, the comic is almost, we don't cut very much. Like, Dana Andra, when she wrote it, like, was very faithful to the book and tried to hit all the same notes that the book did. We couldn't quite, just because like comics take up so much more real estate to tell a story than a novel does. That like if you write in a novel, like, Grinner opened the door and, you know, shielded his eyes from the light. That's like one sentence in a book, and it's 4 panels in a comic, you know? So we couldn't do a literal translation, but we got pretty close. And what's noteworthy to me about that series was, it was sort of the first time Andy Parks was my inker on that project. It's the first time we were ourselves, you know? Like, before that, we'd been trying to get work. So we were trying to do that, you know, square peg round hole thing with having a superhero career, which is like tough. You know, like, I'm a tweener. I'm not really a superhero artist, and I'm not really like a lit comics artist. You know, I'm somewhere in between those two places. Luckily for me, the 90s were a place you could make a living as a tweener. You know, you could work at Vertigo, you could work at Dark Horse. And Bob Schreck, the editor of Jerry Prosser, the editor of Freaks and More, was like, he was a young kind of hip editor, and he was cool with like all like the stylistic influence I was bringing to bear on that book. Mostly, I was really into Jose Munoz at the time, the artist of Sinner, and as was Frank Miller, as was Keith Giffen. Like, we were all like really moved by Sinner. And so, like, it was the first time I just got to be really jagged, really high contrast. And that book was like a little safe island where we could do stuff like that, because they know it was going to be a mini series. They didn't get hung up on how it was going to sell, and they just let us do our thing. And it sort of cemented, I mean, not just that style I wanted to work in, but it also was like an announcement to the world that Andy and I were a team, which was like a big deal to us, because we were both getting work at other companies, but not together. And that's something we wanted to rectify. We wanted to be seen as like, you know, Kirby Sinnott, you know, Byrne and Austin, Miller and Jansen. We wanted to be a team like that. And that book made it happen.
Yeah, I like, if you like his black and white work, I hella recommend checking out Freaks and More. You could probably find it for pretty cheap, like,
for sure,
in the wild, which is sad to me, because it should be way more loved. But it's like I said, man, it's a hard book to read. I'm surprised that Dark Horse put it out because of how bleak it is.
It is very bleak.
but I love it for what it, because like I've never read anything that tackles the idea of prejudice and segregation as hardcore as
Yeah,
freaking Moore does. I mean, like it
it's
just
it's a very realistic view. Like but Dark Horse did a collected edition not too long ago, so I think you might even be able to find it on the Dark Horse website. I'm not sure, but they did it almost like manga or digest size, so it's a little bit smaller than, but it's
okay.
out there. And
Yeah,
the cover artist on that series, it cannot be beat. We had Charles Burns, Mike Mignola, and James O'Barr. You can't beat that combo.
hell no, dude. So yeah, like I that is a full recommendation if you can find like that manga edition, or like there's a regular size trade that came out. I'm not sure. It's got a pink spine. That's the one that I have.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. It's got the Charles Burns cover.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
them taking the mask off kind of after the
yeah,
show. Like,
and
oh
and it's pink. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the one.
yeah.
Another, now that you're mentioning you guys working as a team, you actually did a Clerks comic.
Yeah,
And like I was telling Johnny, when I opened that up, again, black and white, I was like, oh, and it's phenomenal. Like
yeah.
you guys together, like him inking your pencils. I mean, it's beautiful. Like
It was fun, it was it sort of began our relationship with Kevin. That turned into Green Arrow, and that's all down to Bob Schreck, the editor at Oni, who Bob Schreck had been sort of shepherding my career and Andy's career from like a very early stage in our lives. And when he was like sort of the head honcho at Oni, and he landed Kevin, he was like, because Bob's really keyed into the film scene. And before Kevin was Kevin, I mean, Clerks was out, but Kevin wasn't quite like the phenomenon he is now. Shrek, got his hooks into him and said, you have any like stories that you couldn't film that you'd like to make into a comic? And Clerks the Lost Scene was born out of that.
nice. Yeah, it was fun stuff. I enjoyed that, and I thought the work was fantastic in it.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, beyond reproach. People want to look at some good black and white, like they could pick that one up as well, and you could really see some fantastic black and white comics work there.
Another one of your books that a lot of people might know was kind of a dream come true for you. I remember talking to you on Twitter about how you really would like to work with Jeff Lemire, and then Family Tree came out not too long after. Like, how did that feel when that came to fruition?
It was just so awesome. It was like I've been on this roll. I don't know how long it is, like maybe 10 years of like collaborators I can't say no to. Like I really feel like I should be off for like writing and drawing my own thing. But like when Bendis calls, or when Lemire calls, or when Tom King calls, you gotta go. You gotta go. You gotta do it. And I've been a fan of Jess for a long time. And he's just like the kind of dynamo that's like really inspiring. It makes you feel like, yeah, I should be out on the track doing that myself, and also I know that like his fans are aesthetically conditioned to accept like more immediate mark making. I don't want to get too deep in it. Like more immediate mark making in terms of art. Like Jeff's work's very gestural,
Yeah.
And so I decided to like, the themes of Family Tree were, like this kind of invading organic itchiness to everything. And I thought this is a good place to sort of like loosen up my style and be a little more ragged and jagged with it. Because at the same time I was drawing like Superman, or DC, where I had to be very clean and tidy. And like Family Tree was a way to vent and like just really cut loose and be gestural and plan a little bit less, like let the drawing figure itself out on the page instead of nailing everything down first. And so I'm thankful to Jeff for that experience, and also for like the book did really well, but Jeff always has an ending in mind. Anytime he writes something, he's got an ending. Like you saw him do it with his own you guys remember the book Royal City, which
Yeah.
like he was like, this is going to be my thing. I'm just going to do Royal City. And then he got to like issue like 14 or whatever. And he's like, an ending showed up, you know? So I'm going to end it. And that's the same thing we went through with Family Tree. It was going to be 6 issues. Then it was going to be 30. And then finally 12 was like, seemed like a natural place to end it.
Yeah, I remember he did a really flattering foreword for a book of yours that I'm not sure if I should talk about or not. Shipwreck. That you were
No,
like,
you can talk about it.
man, like there's a little bit of I absolutely adore that book. That's one of my favorite books that you worked on. I think that you should do hard sci-fi a little more. Your
Yeah,
shifts
it
and
was
stuff
fun.
are expanding.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to leave aside all this like stuff about Warren. Like he's figuring that stuff out on his own. But I really thought the script was awesome, and it was another place where like people let me do my thing, and Eric Gapster, like this is the first time Eric and I did something that wasn't superheroes together, so it was a way to get sort of let him loosen up, and that led to him working on Family Tree with me. But I think that book, I think Shipwreck led directly to Family Tree, because Jeff read it and thought, yeah. Let's work together.
So I remember like seeing you on Twitter. You were really enthralled with the foreword that he wrote, and you told me how much, or you kind of just put out there how much you would like to work with him. And I thought that was so cool. Like, because I always thought that like you were the end all be all because of like how you came up to, but like how much you kind of wanted to work with the yeah, he was still kind of up and coming at the time. You know what I mean? Wasn't so?
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat. You know?
Yeah, I'm not like well, I'm not I'm not trying to like put myself above anybody, but like I love comics, and I love the comics that are coming out now, not just the comics that came out at the beginning of my career or whatever. Like there's creators now that like I'm so excited about seeing their work, and like the only thing that makes me sad about them is that like I didn't get my hooks into them early enough. Now they're like super, like I got like one story out of Daniel Warren Johnson, and now he's off into the stratosphere, you know? But yeah, I think I'm so keyed into like, I think it goes back to the fact that like when I was reading comics in the 80s, it was a really exciting time for like indie books to come out. And I would get a hold of every indie book I saw because they were just, you know, a change of pace. So I think I own every like Pacific comic, you know. I was just buying everything at that time. And it kept that sort of hunger for novelty alive in me. Like I never once settled on like, I think all comics should look like they were drawn by John Romita or whatever, you know, or they should all look like they were drawn by Jack Kirby. There's a lot of people that really like have really like hidebound notions of what they think a comic should be. And I think coming up in the 80s kind of blew that apart for me, such that like I can appreciate things on like I can see something that I think is probably imperfect or that I disagree with on a thematic level, but because it does something exciting in terms of storytelling or art or the way the like the text is written, I can appreciate it. And that's like the blessing of becoming a mature comic book fan, is that I can take things for what they are. They don't have to be like, you know how when you're a kid and like a band comes along and that band has to be like represent you for you to really love them. You know, they have to be your emblem. But as you get older, you start to like, you know, open up and say, you know what, I'm not, that guy's not, you know, I don't want to live my life like that artist, or you know, the attitudes they represent are my attitudes, but I like that beat, or I like the, you know, I like that guitar playing. And I have that same sort of growth as a comic book artist. I'm into whatever comes down as long as it's exciting.
Nicely said, man. I agree.
Yeah. People get, like you said, too hung up on their idea of what something should be, that they don't appreciate what's actually right in front of them sometimes.
Yeah. And it's usually whatever they saw when they were 13.
Well, and they're unwilling to accept like experimental stuff. I know so many people that react so poorly to Riley Rossimo's DC stuff, and I'm like, dude,
so
he's the only
stupid.
guy that's doing the cool. He's the only guy that's kind of really doing
he's
interesting
great.
stuff at DC right now.
Yeah, we keep wanting. We have this sort of open dance card that we're going to do something together someday, and hopefully we can get that done.
Oh man, that would be great. I love Riley.
I think he's starting up a new book with Scotty Young. I think.
Yes, yeah,
dropping very soon. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of blew my mind. He's like, I'm doing this thing with Scotty, but if you want to do something after that, I'm like, oh, I thought I missed your boat. I thought you were too good to work with me.
He's got a fun, energetic style to.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see it like round into shape. Mm-hmm. Like his earliest work is all energy, all exuberance, and like not a ton of discipline, like the stuff he did on Proof, with Alex Grecian. But like just watching him slowly evolve and like not tamp that weirdness down, but harness it and like yoke it to like a real improvement in his draftsmanship. Mm-hmm. But still keep the weird spark alive in it is kind of a miracle. And that, I think his stuff's really, I eat it up with a spoon.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Speaking of like weird stuff, and you did one of my favorite issues of Crossover. Yeah, it was a fun one. That's the Chip Zdarsky issue. Yeah, like, and you, I don't know if like you had to draw like almost Chip's almost in every single panel, right? So he meets himself from
Sex Criminals.
Sex Criminals, the character from Sex Criminals. So yeah, that was great, and I love the reveal at the end for the Powers characters. They're the ones who are interrogating her.
Like when I read Chip's script, I was like, I better call Mike and make sure this is okay with him. Like, I know they have their permission to use the Powers characters, but are you okay with me drawing them? You know, because that just seemed like wrong. Like someone other than Mike drawing the Powers characters. But
I'm surprised Brian kind of let Donnie get away with what he did in the next issue, where like they're doing the interrogation and like they're like, "Business, you have to drag everything." I'm like,
no,
wow,
Ryan was like,
just put that in the book.
Yeah, Donnie was firing on all cylinders with that book, and then I came back on number 10 and did a story with Kirkman in number 10 as well, and that was also fun.
Yeah, that's true. You worked with Kirkman on Ant-Man, I believe.
Yeah, we did Ant-Man for a year at Marvel before Marvel came to their senses.
Back when they put out good books, you mean?
Well, I won't say that because I might need to work.
Yeah, you want to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're.
I retract that statement, Marvel. You rock.
But it was fun, and we knew it was like it was probably ahead of its time a little bit. Like, had that come out like 5 or 6 years later, we could have been like a kind of a irreverent Guardians of the Galaxy Squirrel Girl kind of hit. But we came out like in the Civil War era when like everything was very dour, like everything had to be earth shaking, and the idea that like your hero would shrink down, you know, so he can make a kernel of popcorn last for a full meal. That was like, that was not cool at Marvel. Like they wanted everything to be, you know, Civil War.
Yeah, big, loud.
Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, now you get these quirky books all the time, and
yeah. Well, I think like I said, I think we were a little ahead of our time.
Yeah. So who approached you for the crossover? For that,
Donnie. Well, yeah, it was Donnie.
Donnie.
Yeah. Because I've known like all these. See, it makes me feel old. Like I know all these people when they were teenagers, but like, yeah, I've known Donnie for a long time, and like on his like ascendancy, we were both working at a lot of the same places, and it's cool to see him like really rise to the top. And I wish him the best in everything he's going through right now.
So, I mean, another creator that we talked about before we went on air is you have a book coming out very soon. I think next month or no, the 20. No,
don't ask me.
EC, the EC book.
Echoes from the Abyss.
with Steph Phillips. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's dropping in a couple weeks. Actually, it drops this month. So
Yeah.
40 pages. It's gonna be a pretty rad anthology. There's a lot of
I
cool
think
creative.
so. Yeah, I feel lucky that Oni's anthologies remind me of the time when I was coming up, when there were like so many great anthologies floating around. You had Negative Burn, you had A1, you had Taboo, all those books coming out on a regular basis. So if you had a weird little story and it could find a place. And these new ones that Oni's doing are a little more directed. They're a little more, they have a theme. But I did one for Xeno, their science fiction anthology, and
yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm doing one for the EC. Well, I did one for the EC one that'll soon come out, and that's one I'm excited about because I have a new inker on that, named Travis Heimel, who has really clicked with me really, really quickly and really well, because my regular inker Eric Gapster, I don't know if you guys know, but he has like a thriving career in like the middle grade graphic novel market. He has his own series called Sort of Super, and he's got another one coming out. So he's he can't devote all his time to inking me, so he's off doing that. So I sort of need a couple more inkers. So but this is the first story I'm doing with Travis Heimel, and I think he's a little more like hard edge than Eric is, and it fits the story.
For the one coming up with Steph Phillips?
Yes.
Yeah, because I saw the sample pages and it looks stellar. Like the work looks really good.
Yeah, it's like we've been working together for a long time, which is cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I thought it looked really good. So yeah, Steph Phillips, another name that you could put on your list of.
Yeah, you can't say no to Steph Phillips. I should have. I had a lot going on, and she's like, but I sort of set myself up for it because it's another Twitter thing. I actually went on there and said, "Only if you're listening, I want to do an EC book."
Yeah.
And they called my bluff right away, so I couldn't say no, especially knowing it was Steph.
Yeah, speaking of Steph, she'll probably be starring in some of these superhero movies soon if she keeps up.
Yeah,
workouts like she's doing. She's turning into a beast. It's crazy.
Putting on a gun show.
Yeah. She's been hitting the gym. I think she started hitting it pretty hard, like when the pandemic rolled around.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I remember she used to just be a little string bean, and now she's,
ready to join the WWF.
Yeah, she could play Wonder Woman or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Oni's on fire right now, man. I'm kind of
I really like the fact that I've always kind of been an Oni guy. I've been there. I was there at the beginning, and it's kind of nice to see them sort of like revitalized and putting out more product, which is cool.
And have like a bunch of the young talent, man. They got our homie Jordan Thompson, Jordan Thomas. He's writing for him now. They got Chris Condon doing a bunch of stuff for him.
Yeah,
they got Matt Luzanowski, like a bunch of up and coming, really great talent that they got books coming out for, and I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah, it's a good time. It reminds me of back when Oni started.
Yeah, because they're actually like indie looking books too that they're putting out. They're not kind of. I love like what's going on with a lot of indie books, but like a lot of them kind of look like high end books now. Whereas like Oni's putting out stuff that looks legit indie.
And some read like their movie pitches, and the Oni books read like they're meant to be indie comics.
Yeah. So
no offense to movie pitches.
No, they're fine. A lot of people want their stuff on Netflix, and like if you can get that bag, dude, do it because
you should, because it makes it so you can make your own whatever kind of comics you want.
Right. Because I'm pretty sure the Firebreather check did wonders for you, right?
We got. I don't know if you noticed, but it started out as a Marvel pitch. Originally, Firebreather was the son of Fin Fang Foom. And it started out as like we pitched Andy and I pitched a Young Avengers book like in the late 90s, way before Young Avengers happened. We didn't call it Young Avengers, but it was basically young versions of like Captain America, The Thing, all these cool characters. And it got pretty far into development. And I think Claremont was like the director of development at the time. And he's like, you need villains. You need young villains too. So we came up with like a young Doctor Doom, et cetera. And the one we liked the most was a young Fin Fang Foom. And he really stuck in our head. So when Marvel finally pulled the plug on that, we took that back and like rewound it, and we're like, how do we, like, there's something really cool here. So we combined a lot of the stuff from the young Fang character we created and the young Fin Fang Foom, and that sort of became Firebreather. So yeah, and Marvel saying no to it was like the best thing that could ever happen to us. Like if they'd said yes, we'd have got like a mini series and we'd be like forgotten. But because we took it back and did our own thing, we made, God knows, we made probably 5 or 10 times what we would have made on it if Marvel had bought it and we'd done it for a page rate.
Yeah, it was huge when it came out. I remember I got the trades for it. I love Firebreather. Really fun. Like all age too, I would say. There's a little bit of sexual humor with the mom and the dad, but it's cute in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is. It's like kind of a wink and a nod. I don't think there's anything over the top.
Because of how ginormous he is and how she's like a regular human.
Well, it's right off. What is it? It's on the 4th page, no?
Yeah, we figured. I mean, we know how that worked. The book didn't live long enough for us to tell you. So it's like this open idea. But Andy and I are committed to like finishing it at some point. So like as soon as Andy's free from the commitments he's in right now, like we're gonna set to work on like the final arc.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
And
so
when
that's
did
one of the ideas you got.
How long has it been since the previous arc?
Long time.
Yeah.
A long time. Like he's been in high school for like 14 years.
Yeah, he's right there with Quentin Quire.
Right. Like Invincible started at the same time, and he's like a grandpa now.
Good stuff. Before we were talking about you have some conventions coming up. So, are there any conventions you wanted to plug before? Before we go, so you can let people know where you're going to be if they want to come see you, get some stuff signed.
This very weekend, I will be at the New World Comic Con at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds, Saturday and Sunday. And then now you're putting me on the spot because I don't really think that far ahead. I know I'm going to do my favorite convention, which is SuperCon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at the end of September. I think I'm going to do Madison, Wisconsin's con in September and the Twin Cities con in November. And then little ones here and there. Like I'm in Iowa, so I sort of do I try to help out like small regional cons
to get a little more exposure to help it grow and stuff.
Right. Because I'm like I said, I'm from Iowa, so like the idea of that any city in Iowa having a Comic-Con was like mind blowing to me when I was a kid. So like, now cities of like 30, 50,000 have cons. So I try to support those. Yeah.
Because I mean, as a kid, you remember how it was when you were a kid.
Oh yeah.
So if you can give that experience back to some, teenager, I mean, it's well worth it because it stays with you forever. Right?
Oh, it does. Like I remember like when I was a kid before the internet, really even before the comics press, largely, like I didn't know how comics were made. I thought you drew them the size of the comic, I didn't know. And it took me till I was like 17, 18 to figure out that's not the case. And it took me to about that age to like meet another professional. But once I did, I was just sort of like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I knew right then and there that that's something I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that you give back.
Paying forward,
way.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any projects that you can announce that are in the pipeline? Not at the moment. No.
I'm knee deep in something with another one of those writers you can't say no to.
Okay. Someone you've worked with previously, or a new collaboration?
New person.
Okay.
But one well known to comic book readers. And I'm developing stuff that I'm writing as well. I can't announce any of this. I feel dumb. I feel bad.
So indie or DC, or can you say that?
I guess I can say it's for Dark Horse.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
So you're working with Scott Snyder, huh?
I didn't say that.
Magnola.
Look, you're gonna keep going until you guess it, and then make me a liar because I'm gonna say no on your time.
No, but that's cool. That's good news. That means
Yeah.
we'll be getting more work coming from you down the pipeline, steadily trickling down. So that's good, man.
Yeah, and it's a real gear shift for me because it's sort of an all ages thing. So
okay.
It'll be fun.
Cool. So you said you're going to get back to writing. What do you have a preference between drawing or writing, or is it you enjoy both? Yeah, you do, eh?
I enjoy both, but like writing is easier on your body.
Yeah.
You know, because like drawing, you're hunched over a drawing table for hours and hours on end, and it's gratifying. It's fun to put out like a good page, but I'm not trying to disparage any writers in my life, but writing is easier.
Yeah.
You know, it requires the same level of creativity, but not the same level of physical exertion. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not out like working on a road crew. You know, I don't have that kind of a job, but there are some, you know, you're up late, you're terrible posture, all this stuff that comes from drawing comics that is absent from the life of writing comics.
Yeah, and you still draw everything traditionally, right?
Yeah, I'm like I don't know if everybody knows it, but I'm also collect original art. So like it's very ingrained in me to have a piece of art at the end of the process.
Yeah, I read something somewhere that you're a very avid art collector.
Yeah.
And what they said online, I won't repeat just for so people don't get funny ideas, but anyway.
Yeah. You keep your own art though? That's cool. I always tell Joe that I would.
No. I sell my own art. I have like a box. I have a vault, quote unquote, a vault, where I have probably 30 of my own pages that I just keep for like art shows and pass on to my kids or whatever. But it's usually like one page from every big project, you know. But I collect other people's artwork. But also I just to me, coming up in art school, like so much of like my training was about you had to sort of like really get elbow deep into a drawing, and you had to like, it's not going to be good unless you lose it at some point. Like if you can't really know a drawing until you've lost it and gotten it back. And I know a lot of creators who just have like a process so nailed down that's just like there's just like start in one corner and end in the other, and there's no struggle, you know, like it's just they know their style, like the same style they've had since they were like 23 or whatever. And for me, the struggle that's evident in my work is like the most satisfying part of the aesthetic of my work. And I'm not saying I don't appreciate those other artists that don't struggle, but I have to struggle. And you struggle a lot when you're on the page. Like you can't undo things. So you got to like, if you draw yourself into a corner, you got to draw yourself out, or you got to figure out a solution. And that part of the job is the most exciting part of the job to me. Problem solving is more important than showing off to me.
That's cool.
I love a good pencil drawing. Like, I mean, I love seeing the pencils. It's just so much character in the pencils before it's inked. Like, I can't explain it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like when I was a kid and like an issue of Marvel Age would come out and it would have preview pencils.
Yes.
To me, that was like the most exciting thing. I was like, oh, this is how they do it. You know, because once something is inked, it has this sheen of professionalism on top of it that's sort of like it doesn't take the soul out of it. A good inker adds soul, but it kind of distances itself from like a young creator because it starts to look unattainable when it's really like when Tom Palmer inks something and it's just so perfect, like that looks like magic to you. It doesn't look like, it's sort of like the difference between a studio album and seeing a band live. When you see a band live, you see their screw ups, you see them struggle with certain things.
Yeah.
But the studio albums are all the wrinkles are ironed out. That's sort of the difference between pencils and inks to me.
Yeah, but pencils, like you say, you see the process.
Yeah,
Because you'll see like, oh, then they rework it. Like, I don't like this. So you draw a little bit and
yeah,
correct it. And you see the corrections on top of, so you really see the evolution of that
yeah,
from like of it growing into what it'll become in the final piece, which
for
is
sure.
which
One of the
is
things
so cool.
one of the like areas of focus in my art collection is I collect a lot of roughs. So I get to see like the very first stages of the page before it's finished. And that's super exciting to me. I own a Kirby rough, which is, ask an art collector. I don't know if there are any besides the one I own, because he was like one of those, like he had a projector in his head, like he shot the projector down on the page and then just drew what he saw. But he did a rough for another artist, and I bought it. I think I bought it from Glenn Danzig. I think.
Okay.
Can't remember. Wow. Well, I know I bought something from Glenn Danzig, but I can't remember which piece it was. It might have been that one. But it's a rough for like a T-shirt design that John Romita drew later.
Okay. Cool.
But it's just I love seeing people work things out. I love the evidence of them working it out. That's to me more educational than any. That's why like I really love the artist edition, where you see like the people that really made mistakes and like fixed it. Like Joe Kubert's the best. Like Joe Kubert like attacks a page, like he'll throw scotch tape on it, a Xerox piece of tissue, whatever, to get what he wants. And those are the exciting art. Like some are like the art is too pristine, like there are no changes, and like I didn't really learn anything from that. But like the ones where I get to see all the scars, that's the stuff I learned from.
Yeah, I'd love to have more artist editions released of books.
Oh, I can't. Like I told Scott Dunbier to stop making so many, because I could turn my camera around and show you the wing of my studio dedicated to artist editions.
Yeah.
Out of control.
Yeah, you see the blue line still, everything. Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
So do you ever work with Glenn Danzig by any chance, or did
no? I just bought art from him.
You never did nothing for Verotic? Okay.
No, I didn't. No, I don't think I was sexy enough for them. Yeah. I look like a dad. I've looked like a dad since I was like 19.
Yeah. From your collection, do you ever lend your art out for exhibitions, like at museums, stuff like that?
No one's ever asked that. I have lent them out for artist editions.
Okay, for them to take pictures to put into books and stuff.
They don't trust me to scan my own. I have to send it in, and they have a better scanner than I do.
Yeah.
Do you have any Stan Saki art?
I don't, because he doesn't sell his art.
Oh, does he not? Okay.
He said you can buy sketches, like that he does for fans at shows, and they might wind up on the secondary market, but he does not sell his pages.
Okay.
Yep. He's a Walt Simonson. Walt doesn't either.
Cool. Well, Johnny, do you have anything you would like to wrap up with?
No, I think we've kept Phil long enough. We told him about an hour, and we're about over that. So I said we might as well, wrap this up. So yeah, we really appreciate you doing this, man. Like, you are incredible, and you've really affected my time as a fan. You know what I mean? For as long as I can remember, you've been there, and
I appreciate
the inspiration.
You guys were good. You guys were good interviewers. It was a fun time.
Thank you. On Thursday, we will be back. We're going to be doing a trailer breakdown for the Hellboy, the Crooked Man, and we're going to be talking about our feelings for, on the upcoming film. So, and I think Joe hasn't seen the trailer yet, so it's going to be his reaction.
No, I try to avoid trailers, but I'm going, but because we're doing an episode on it, I won't have a choice. I'm going to have to watch the trailer.
They'll keep a camera on you for the live reaction.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna play it. We're gonna play it through once, and then I'm gonna clip all the beautiful Richard Corbin panels that they use in the trailer, and I'm gonna show it, pause it a lot, and show kind of why the trailer is actually pretty cool, and a lot of people are wrong about this movie. So, in my opinion, we got that coming on Thursday, and then on Saturday we're gonna have Frank Martin back on to talk about his Kickstarter for the Fourth Wallflowers. So check us out then. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Have a nice week.
Bye-bye.